Okay, hello, everybody. I'm Emily. I lead the DevRel team here at Scroll. We have a new episode today, Level Up with Codex. We're talking about DeFi and incentives, which is potentially spicy, potentially not. We'll see how Justin leads the conversation. But yeah, I mean, we have a special guest here today. We've streamed before together, which is why I was like, oh, we need to bring you back because you're so charismatic and so intelligent. Um, and I feel like I want to talk to you in a different capacity. But before I guess, start introducing you and stealing your thunder, I'm going to let you come in and say a few words about yourself, and we'll dive into it.
Sure, yeah. I'm Justin. I run kind of like an engineering firm, R&D firm called Conclave. Right now, we're working on something that we're calling Codex. Probably next time you hear from me, I'll just introduce myself as the leader of Codex. But we're transitioning over time. And yeah, we create AI infrastructure and we create DeFi protocols and we create all sorts of cool stuff, really for the purpose of making DeFi more accessible and improving outcomes for the end user. And on Squirrel right now, we maintain the Lore protocol, and the Lore we're slowly plugging into kind of our AI solver network and our liquidity network. And yeah, we just like building on Squirrel, I suppose.
That's always good to hear. I kind of want to dive into this a bit before we, I think, talk about DeFi incentives, because one of the things I always love to explore, especially when we have founders and builders on the pod, is just understanding your story, getting some advice, and going through the wild journey that is to push out in the wild, wild west that is crypto.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I guess we can. I'd like to start with how you got into crypto and then kind of your first venture into I guess what you were building. I'm not sure if like Conclave was the very first step into I guess the founder
Sure.
world. But
It was by a different name. In 2020, we were called Byte Masons. I created essentially a Discord group where me and a bunch of other people learned about Ethereum security together, smart contract engineering, um, and like hunted Gitcoin bounties and did some freelance work. And then in early 2021, we launched our first app and kind of the rest is history. We're managing hundreds of millions in TVL within a handful of months. Our team was managing many billions before the end of the year, and really our focus was on DevSecOps, advisory, consulting, and then obviously app development, which we're especially passionate about, just because product is something that's really important to us.
yeah, very cool. So, I feel like I need a bit more context on Conclave. Is it more along the lines of like started as a or is still like a dev shop in a sense?
Kind of. I mean, really, we're kind of zeroed in on one core product right now, so we're kind of evolving at the moment into just a typical team managing a project. Really, like in 2021, so we were doing yield aggregation on an app called Reaper. This was on the Phantom network, ancient history, but we realized very quickly that our moms couldn't use our products,
Yeah.
and since then we've built middleware, we've built wallet infrastructure, we've built AI infrastructure, we've built, RAG infrastructure, which is the same thing. But, you know, we've pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and built projects for ourselves and for other people and retained all the IP and have gotten to a point where now pretty comfortably with Codex, we feel that without needing to be on a phone call, we could get our moms using Web3. So it's really like we've because we were bootstrapped. We were revenue funded. Really early on, and we're really successful in 2021. Our journey has been very like roundabout because it's like you have to have a product that fits the market. You have to have a product that can scale if you actually want to make money. And then the base layer of that is like, okay, if we can't ship a product that gets people super excited and gets a lot of money in the door, we just need to do consulting. For example, with Optimism, we ran their Superfest campaign, which by a lot of measures, and we'll have a cool write-up soon, was one of the most successful incentive campaigns in history. We took like at the depths of the bear like $1.5 million and turned it into $200 million of TVL, which is like not easy. So yeah, it's really like we just did what we needed to get to the end state, which is kind of now Cod3x, which is like we want our moms to use DeFi. And that's
Yeah.
literally the measure we use internally is
No,
the
that
mom
makes.
test.
Do you guys actually call your mom or like get your mom's?
Yeah. Our
Yeah,
nieces, nephews, moms, sisters. It's like if
that's
if they can't figure it out with us, like sitting behind their shoulders in an hour, there's a problem.
okay.
Which
Yeah.
really just means moms have figured out like Facebook. That's like the peak of mom tech. So you need to kind of get to that level to onboard boomers, unfortunately. But we find AI is a really amazing tool. RAG specifically, which is retrieval augmented generation, which is basically AI plus a database for added context and information. But we find that like technical complexity, like when you talk about account abstraction, chain abstraction, whatever, like that for us is like really easy. It's a technical problem. There's a very clear, straightforward engineering solution to it. But when you talk about cognitive barriers to entry, intellectual complexity, like I'm not going to tell my mom to sit down and watch 40 Fine Maddox videos or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like
Yeah, yeah.
we need to get to that point where people can just dive in. And there's a reason nobody manages their own finances. It's because it's hard, it's complicated. And I would say right now, if you're looking at, for example, like a pension product or like a retirement account, et cetera, it's like, why is this person, with savings of 45,000 to $200,000, back running, multi-trillion-dollar organizations into like these weird equity portfolios or bond portfolios or whatever that can't even outperform the S&P 500. We think there's like that needs to be solved for, and the only way that can be solved for is if you can empower people to actually build their own portfolios that are tuned more to their portfolio size, their preference, and things of that nature. And TradFi can't really do that because too many layers of technical complexity. But with DeFi, it's like it's all composable, it's all deterministic. We can take these RAG solutions and point them at the blockchain and come up with pretty good results. And obviously, like there's years of secret sauce. It's not just RAG. But I can't. If I told you, I'd have to kill you. But
Okay. I know that's and everyone watching, so you'll have to do the whole like break into the YouTube account, figure out addresses. But I believe that you can do that, so please don't tell me.
I think you need a subpoena, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But I think there was one piece that you mentioned that I kind of want to hook into and maybe get into the meat of this episode. And you were mentioning always making sure you guys are finding product market fit. And I think my first question is, do you think DeFi really has okay, let me start over. At what level of adoption does product market fit? Like, are we allowed to say product market fit? Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think that product market fit is more so to me about scaling, which obviously adoption is part of that. But it's like, if you don't have, PMF, scaling is going to be um, hard, borderline impossible. It's like, okay, maybe I have this bucket of incentives I can throw at the problem, and maybe I can see some return, or maybe I can fake it till I make it. but the reality is when product market fit is there, it's just like liquidity is like water. It's like you're having issues scaling up to meet demand. You're having issues developing features fast enough. You're having problem here, problem there, and I think DeFi for sure has product market fit. Obviously, not all aspects of DeFi. And some seasons there are products that fit much better than others. But I think in aggregate, like DeFi is the only thing that I can look at and say, okay, there's a definite fit here. Here are these financial rails, here are these payment rails, and here's financial infrastructure built right on top. And if you have yield that scales, which yield that scales is like incentives that scale, which is kind of the same problem. Here's this big bucket of money we can give out, but if there's enough demand to surface really sustainable yield and push really sustainable yield, then there's like the product market fit being yield, which everybody adores, or like trading, whatever. There's fit there, and then there's like this is going to be really stupid. There's like market product fit, which is like, okay, I have a product that can scale organically on both sides of the trade, being, makers and takers are paying each other. And maybe I'm, easing the system a little bit, but makers and takers are paying each other to the degree that scale is obviously there's no infinite and there's hardly any theoretically infinite, but you can scale without necessarily needing the hyper subsidization.
Yeah. I actually don't think it's stupid to say market product fit, because that's a lot of what I've been thinking about when it comes to, one of the things like Scroll is aiming for, right, is really supporting and finding dApps that land emerging markets, right? And from the view of market product fit, I think a successful dApp that gets adoption throughout all of Argentina, but maybe not globally, it's actually a really amazing product, right? And I think
Yeah.
to that end too, like really landing a subset of power users that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I was kind of picking up on the idea, because one of the other questions I wanted to ask you was like, how do you know when you have product market fit? And you mentioned like when you're starting to have problems and you have to build and keep up with all the demand. And then that's kind of the signal of like, oh, if my life is hard, that means I have something going on. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think like if you look at the growth of consumer apps in Web 2, there's this whole market of boutique, Uber type products or boutique food delivery products that are designed to suit a particular city better than Uber can, because Uber needs to suit an aggregated audience.
Mm.
So, when you talk about a coincidence of wants, for example, as you scale and scale and scale, and you look at whatever the bell curve is worth is a tool of measurement, just at least visually, you look at that median 68%, and as you scale you need to just focus on covering as many bases as possible, and so you open up opportunities at either end of the spectrum. So a tool geared toward Americans, for example, is going to be really undesirable to Argentinians, because Argentinians don't need to worry about the SEC, or a product, housed in Dubai, is going to have kind of a much different set of jurisdictional weapons than a product based elsewhere might. So really, it's in finance. Like obviously, the internet is universally acceptable, but jurisdiction matters a lot. And if you want to win a jurisdiction, it's really, I mean, mostly it's like, how can I perform the most effective regulatory arbitrage in this subset of my vertical? Which there are a lot of companies that do a really good job of that.
Right, absolutely. So I think there's a hint of a leading assumption, I think, when we talk about DeFi and incentives, is that like, oh, incentives are negative, right? And I think maybe, that perception has come to a point because, I think the joke is like, oh, another point system, or maybe incentives are being taken too far. where
Yeah.
things become meaningless. Or having products that don't actually their market fit is dependent on the incentive. Once the incentive is gone, like you kind of have nothing. And I want to get your vibe kind of on how you feel about incentives in DeFi, because I was also kind of taking a peek at the Codex Twitter, and I feel like you guys definitely poke at points programs a little like spicily,
Yeah.
like
Well, we're running one. I mean, the thing is,
right, yeah,
incentives, like finance and capitalism run on incentives. Like there's
right.
no question. It's literally just the only way to organize people at scale is intelligently designed incentives. And Codex is actually going to help teams distribute incentives. But I think there is like kind of this, in Web3, um, how many of your users are users, or how much of that TVL is organic, how much of this, how much of that, how much of the other is going to be there if things change slightly. And I think there's this urge from myself and from a lot of the market to see incentives and think, oh, that's fake, oh, these metrics are fake, this is fake, that is fake. And it's like, you know um what do you think we're doing? Like, this is finance. Like every single
Mm.
person working in blockchain is looking to outperform, and the most intelligently designed programs are going to be the ones that allow users to outperform and also allow the issuer of points or the creator of the program to outperform. And so, just because you have 20 million people in Southeast Asia using the app, um, or using something, you can't look at that and say, "Oh, that's useless. Those are just symbols. That's gamed metrics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera." It's like the product market fit for crypto in those regions are points programs and airdrops. And you talk to a project manager in Indonesia, they're going to be thinking a lot differently about these financial products. It's like, hey, we're looking for the 0 to 1. We're either looking for the financial nihilism 100x, like crazy meme coin extravaganza, or for the more discerning person, we're looking for the somewhat risk-free points farming, just so that people can get ahead. And it's like a really great opportunity. And that's genuine distribution. Those are a lot of times real people that are talking about these products and spreading the word and building up noise and building up energy. So I think it's really like we can look at ourselves, we could be self-effacing and we can kind of joke about it. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's why Web3 is going to kill Web2. And, our product stack, like if you've messed around with lore, like lore is really, in Vitalik's words, it's kind of like an Ouroboros. Like, we developed this system, using all of the kind of incentive tech under the sun. It's like, oh, we're going to do an IFO using O tokens, and there's going to be a decaying option, and there's going to be all this crazy stuff. And really, that's a way of saying, hey, we're going to create kind of like a PvP environment, where the game is probably negative sum, as is the case with a lot of these financial products, with the intention of being distribution, so that, okay, hopefully we can iterate to something more sustainable down the line. And that's the case in a lot of ways. It's like, this is a nascent industry. We've been around for 5 years, and we're already letting people touch around and mess with this stuff. Like, 5 years into Web 1.0, like it was a ghost town. So yeah, I mean, we're trying to get people to care at scale right now. And there is, like in DeFi, I would say, like there are hundreds of people seeking yield at significant size. Um, and they're doing it because they know they can outperform in DeFi, because there are fewer middlemen. There are these incentives floating around. Farming Aave on Scroll, looping Aave on Scroll is a pretty dang good deal right now. No matter how you view the value of marks. So yeah, it's like, um, DeFi has a fit. Incentives have a really good fit, or fabulous fit. And I think blockchain is a result of financial nihilism to a certain extent across the board. And even if you're American, we're here because the 2008 financial crisis gave us PTSD. So, it's like it is what it is, and it's kind of cool to operate within a world where you can get 100% APR with relatively low risk. That's kind of fun.
Yeah, yeah, financial nihilism. I love how you mention like points is kind of a risk-free system. I think like within DeFi, the or maybe in modern normie world, it's like, what? How is that risk free? And communicating that is interesting. There's a lot of gems. Financial nihilism. I've never heard
Yeah.
someone put it that way. Maybe I'm just not exposed enough
If
to.
anyone says the word risk free, run in the other direction. I'm only saying it because I'm not talking about our own stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
mean the financial nihilism is very real. It's like I was born into a lower class family. How can I get out unless I can get 100x on poo poo coin? This is like it sounds funny to us, but that is sincerely like the thought process. And it's like, okay, I'm going to work every day, and I'm going to take this money, and I'm going to hyper gamble it, because if I can nail that 100x, I've moved up a social class. And it's like literally people eating, in America, the equivalent would be peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I don't know what the poverty meals are in Southeast Asia. But when I was like starting up my first business or saving up to start my first business, I would literally cost out my food budget to like less than $20 a month by going to Aldi and buying big fat loaves of bread and eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for every meal. Um, and it's like I was like, oh, I want to start a business. I'm in America. I can just start a business and maybe outperform and just save money. But in Southeast Asia, it's like, can you just save up enough money to start a business? Probably not. It's like we're really, really lucky to have that opportunity in America. So what do? Well, I go on the permissionless infrastructure on the internet, and I see if I can make a 100x, so that I can maybe buy a home, or at least like rent a better apartment and have a higher quality of life.
Yeah. I'm so curious. Like, I want to ask you, is like, did you actually like get yourself out of a funk by 100xing on Poo Poo Coin? But
Me?
yeah.
Well, I 100x on the Phantom coin in decent size. That's how I started this company. But yeah, it's like opportunity is all luck. It's like a function, like, or luck is rather a function of your exposure to opportunity. And when you're the peanut
Mm,
butter jelly sandwich guy, and you're like, okay, I need to level up a social class. I'm going to cover all my bases. Um, Sometimes it happens, and for 75 to 95% of people, it never happens. And they're eating the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and they're doubling, tripling down, and it just doesn't coalesce. And it's like you look at the meme coin market, for example, and you can think of anything like yield. Like you can think of meme coins like yield. It's like the riskiest yield ever. Like lottery tickets have some yield. You could say, and it's just the same thing. It's like I'm gonna make 1,000 bets on the future and save as much money as I can to keep making bets. And if one pans out, it pans out, and if it doesn't, it doesn't.
mm, interesting.
That is
Yeah.
that is like that is how we're taught to market to Southeast Asia. Is like either the free like Sybil to earn to get like voices into the ecosystem, or like hyper gambling infrastructure.
Oh, a lot of hot takes. I mean, maybe true takes, but not the politically correct ones.
Oh,
Um,
I mean, there are a lot of really fabulous whales in Southeast Asia. It's just the wealth disparity there is even bigger than the U.S. So it's
right,
like, if you want to address the normal people, which we love making products for normal people, like they're the people we relate to. Um, and to be honest, pleasing the funds is easy. Like any professional, they just want money. They're like, okay, I
right.
I know the market rate for this and that, and I want to meet or exceed that given like some risk profile, and can you do that for me? And it's a yes or no question. So that's like an easy market to address. But for the normal person, it's like understanding the emotions that lead them into finance, whether it be
Mm,
like, the finance of meme coins, the finance of points, or, typical sort of hedge fund stuff. Um, it all kind of boils down to, uh, you know, where are they coming from? How are they feeling, etc.
yeah, yeah. Very cool. I kind of wanted to get your vibe on, as someone who like understands the value of incentive programs. Um, and honestly, you're completely right. Like everything is driven by incentives. So like coming from like any sort of assumption that incentive points are bad or have a negative lean is like very biased, right? Um, do you think we've reached a point where maybe it's gone too far, or there's just have been like we're at a place where there's a lot of bad actors that we're not protecting against that is leading to this kind of sentiment? Um,
Um, no, I mean, I think people are just bored. There hasn't really been, it's like, Pac-Man invented the concept of points, and it's been redone 1,000 times since then. I'm gonna say bye to my fiance real quick. One second. Bye. Okay. And farmers are bored, and the thing is, like, foundations and teams have gotten really good at farming the farmers, so to speak. It's like, okay, what are my KPIs for a Binance listing? How much TVL do I need to achieve critical mass? And how long can I drag out this points program until people, break out the torches and pitchforks? Um, and to be honest, like, I think that relationship is a healthy relationship. This is, it's like price discovery. It's like, you know, teams early on, like, they're always going to give away too much. People are always going to be super excited, and as more and more data, as more of these points programs get run, some fail, some succeed. It's eventually going to get to a point where the trade is 1-to-1. It's like, oh, we're paying you a market rate of points, or with some notional dollar value attached and some risk attached. The risk being, am I going to actually get the Binance listing or not? That's like, this is kind of how points farmers think, and I think really it's like, a lot are tired of getting farmed. A lot are tired of, um, just the same exact thing over and over again, and many are looking for, something new. And I don't know if we're ever going to get something new, but I don't think it's gone too far. It's like, these tokens need to get into people's hands somehow. And if you can get people to engage at scale, then great. Because, if you want to grow or you want to achieve critical mass, people have to engage. And you need to, like, you'll never dilute if you're just going to market. You've got your VC coins, you've got your team coins, and then, like, 95 or 90 or 80% of the supply untouched. You're never ever going to get those into people's hands, because you'll need to inflate too much. And it's like the 100-year inflation schedule. People don't like it. People don't want it. It's like, they want tokens day one. They want deep liquidity day one, and they want, people on both sides of the trade. So everything, like, just in the same way, everything you can argue is yield, you can also argue everything is just a trade. It's really, finance is just one big thing. It's like, here's some risk reward, here's some party and some counterparty. How can we kind of mix this stuff up until both are happy? And I would say points are easily the best way to do that. Unfortunately for the people bored of them, because it's like, the people farming points at scale, and Sandy, I think, knows this better than anybody. They're the people who are serving clients and LPs. So it's like, if you're running a hedge fund and your job is to get 15% APR with $100 million of size, you don't get that by holding on to tokens. So with points, it's like, there's this really good piece of research. I couldn't dig it up for you now, but it essentially analyzed vesting schedules. It analyzed, like, what is the most effective way to issue tokens, and um, doing them in big lump sums, like big unlocks all at once. They realized was much better, because the market was good about pricing them in beforehand. So when they actually hit the market, it's not just infinite downside. And
Mm.
there can be trading OTC, and price discovery can happen. But if it's like linear, then nobody really can do the math, because everybody is going to kind of have their own method of engaging. So with points, it's like everything lines up according to the teams of the foundation schedule. Everything kind of works out much better. And in between each round of points or each airdrop distribution, you can achieve another milestone, because you basically have 3 to 6 months of breathing room to close the next round or get the next listing or ship the next product, for example.
Yeah. Everything is kind of a two-way street. And I think the other thing when people ask me about it too is I'm like, dude, points programs exist everywhere. I am so incentivized. Oh, yeah, and I gave a brief kind of piece about this at a presentation I did where I ended it with a okay, and if you guys are interested in it, please use my share code for my Chinese grocery delivery service. Because I I want discounts and points and like rewards and all of that stuff. So here's my I don't have it on hand for me right now. I messed up. I should have gotten my code so I could just chill it right here. But if anyone's interested, please comment. It's called WEEE, and they ship Korean, Japanese, and Chinese groceries right to your door at like
Wow.
normal grocery prices and not like international section of Whole Foods prices. So
That's crazy.
I
Or you
don't.
could just live in Southern California,
That's
and then you
true.
can just walk down the street.
That's fair. But if you're lazy like me and you never leave your home because thankfully or you've been blessed with work from home and having everything at the like your phone's fingertips, delivery is a possibility. Which I guess is kind of similar to. I mean, I haven't gotten my hands on Codex yet, but similar vibes in the sense of just like being able to participate in all these things at a very kind of at your fingertips, seamless, brainless way.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, well, I'll give you the demo in Telegram, but we might ship the alpha as soon as this week. Uh,
oh, okay.
and all people need to do is join our Discord and mint a cute NFT that we created. So anybody listening, you can go to the Codex org, Cod3x org Twitter, and I assume the Discord link is there. I don't know, but yeah, that's some alpha, and yeah, we're going to be it like getting the infrastructure to get to a point where people can actually use this stuff and it's somewhat reliable.
Mhm.
Has been like a war for the past 2.5 years, but now that we're at this point, it's like, oh, we can iterate so fast. So getting to the alpha is like uh, signaling the end of a 2.5 year long engineering
Yeah.
conundrum, which has been very exciting. But we get to the boring part, just data engineering and metadata farming and data entry and boring stuff. But it's cool to be here.
Yeah. I had seen this other tweet on your Codex account. I forget. I should have saved it off, but it was a little cheeky talking about like, I promise we have utility or something along those lines. And not that I'm asking, I mean, if you want to tell us what the utility is, feel free. But like in general, how do you think about utility? Um,
Yeah, I mean, utility is in 99.9% of cases. Well, maybe that's too much. Utility is in 90% of cases just a dog whistle for yield. It's like a compliant way to say we're gonna have yield, we're gonna have interest, which is typically especially when an American might see it, not a nice thing to say, because
mm,
the SEC will be at your door. So people say utility. Oh, this token's going to have a lot of utility. But beyond that, it means like integrations. It also means like, oh, hey, you can have this token, and when you go onto a platform, it's going to be potentially usable, which could in some cases mean there's liquidity there, or it could be used as collateral. So the way we think about it is, we're building this network of protocols, and we're designing tokens for DeFi. So the CDX token, which after a points program may or may not exist. But uh, you know, the goal is to make it really underwritable. So once we achieve kind of our internal KPIs and the token exists, we can plug it into these lending platforms as a collateral type. Our decentralized exchange partners can use it, and then we're also discussing using it to pay for compute, just like you might buy words or tokens from an AI company.
Mhm.
Our system, like it's not really compute intensive, and we'll probably size down the models we're using
Mhm.
because the ones we're using now are a little overkill. Um, but it does use a fair amount to actually get across the line. So we'll probably let people pay for that compute using our token, which we think is pretty cool. The issue is if you've like if you were around in the business in 2021 and remember all the companies that were like, "Oh, pay for this with our token. You need to use our token." They got no business. Like
Mm.
the graph is a really good example. It's like we would have paid for their stuff if it had been easier and we didn't need to use some weird token payment method. But also like when you run the universal abstract AI thing, you can kind of just abstract all that stuff away. And um, so yeah, that's kind of how we're thinking about token utility. And my favorite thing to do with the token is just hold on to it. I'm really bad at selling things or borrow on it. Like to me, borrowing is the best utility, and being able to achieve the status of good enough collateral to borrow with is not easy. It takes a lot of effort to make a token that's underwritable like that. But all I do is lend and borrow on our own software. I like dog food in, and I just don't know how to sell tokens. I'm like, there's something wrong with me.
There's nothing wrong with you because I am exactly the same. Or maybe there's something wrong with both of us, and I need to go reconsider all of
Maybe there's
my
something wrong
choices.
with everyone else.
Okay, yeah, yeah. I think that's the stance. Thank you for being the more positive one of us
Yeah, if you
2.
just remember, every dollar you make is a dollar you're taking away from someone else.
Oh
So,
my god.
uh,
You sound exactly like my partner. I think it's very much a us versus them kind of mindset, which is good in some cases, bad in some cases. I think the rainbow frou frou happy part of me is like, how could you say something? How dare you? But I get it. Yeah, yeah. Um cool. I mean, I that was kind of the 3 things I wanted to hit because I think with every episode I usually have like 3 big themes, right? Which was
yeah.
can Web3 I guess I never asked this explicitly, but it was implied, like, can Web3 exist without incentives? Um,
Mm.
but
No,
yeah, no.
it's financial software, and all finance is incentive. So I will say
Right.
no, but if you mean like points programs or whatever, sure. It's just like going to be way less fun.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also, I feel like the takeaway is, like, guys, just your entire life is incentive driven, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, yeah,
You
and
can
then
either go to work or you can move to Indonesia and farm airdrops all day. And I bet the latter would probably be more fun for a lot of you, to be honest.
I've been caught. Every time I look at my rent, I'm like, I could be doing something else."
Dude, the
But
smartest people I know move to Indonesia or Vietnam and farm airdrops. And they're like, that's like a 150 IQ move. Uh, it's just we get wound up in responsibility, and unfortunately, can't have that wonderful benefit. So it is what it is. We have to live here in America, and there's a lot of good parts of that, but you know, it's
yeah,
expensive.
yeah. I mean, I have incentives in, I guess, the other direction to stay where I am.
Yeah.
Um, but and then I think the second point was like, oh, I guess how do you build? So I was yeah, you kind of answered this, like, how do you build for utility? Um,
Mm, yeah. I mean, that's like a little bit of a rabbit hole because really building for utility. in a lot of ways means like build optimizing for regulatory arbitrage. So it's like, how do you make a token high utility? Well, you do your best to dodge American regulation and integrate it everywhere you can. Make it interest bearing. Make it a payments vehicle. Make it this. Make it that. Make it the other. All these things that are really heavily regulated in the states. That's like when people were asking for utility. I remember in 2022, like everybody was knocking our door down saying utility, utility, utility. And at that point, we had a lot of American infrastructure, and we were like, dude, like literally everything you're asking for is illegal. um, like people hate hearing that. It's like, what? And I think over time, like as we've become more international and set up more international infrastructure and structured ourselves to be less dependent on stateside infra, et cetera. It's like, okay, now we can give the utility, and in a lot of ways, I think the ultimate utility to me is just like a stable coin. It's like I want to be able to pay someone 10 grand in 1 second without having to like get a cashier's check or like beg my bank for this, that, the other. Utility for people that have their whole savings on chain, I think, is a lot different than utility for everybody else. And it's like, okay, I want yield. I want to be able to lend and borrow, and I want to be able to like pay people really easily, and I want to be able to pay for my life as well, which is something that hasn't happened yet. Like I want to I want to be able to pay rent in USDC. I want to be able to buy things with USDC more easily, because it's just easier and better. Even if you go through the KYC process and all of the kind of regulatory hurdles that you need to go through, it's still way easier because the blockchain makes settlement like amazing. It's like 1 second, and it's not like running around and talking to 5 different financial institutions trying to figure out how to freaking give somebody money. Um, it's just it's strict, it's deterministic, and everything is there. So that's really what I'm excited for, and it's literally just like a regulations problem. And it's a regulations problem, and it's like obviously an adoption problem, being,
Mm-hmm.
hey, uh, like Square or other payment vendors start accepting crypto. We know it won't be that hard, but that's also regs. It's like if to jump into the world of like licensure in the United States, like a lot of these licenses take years to get. Like Coinbase, like I think Kraken just got like some kind of really cool license in Dublin in Ireland, which is like the holy grail of like money transmitter licenses. And now they can like interact with the world basically tax free. Coinbase has it already, and I think something like 6 people in the world have it, probably more than that. But and it takes years and years to get. And in the US, everything is like that. So if you remember in 2021, like Compound and Aave both tried to create institutional products and get all the licensure, and they just couldn't. It's like, who's going to bank you at that size, this weird crypto platform? And who's going to license you? Who's going to do this? Who's going to do that? And everybody just ran into this brick wall of regulation in the US. And Coinbase is really like the reason we all have to cheer for Coinbase is they're the ones paying for 1 billion lobbyists to push this stuff across the line. So it's just a time thing. And if you're in crypto, if you're in this nascent industry and you're operating on short time horizons, it's like you're just gonna, unless you're extremely lucky, you're just gonna be sad all the time, because finance is like, it moves as slow as I don't know what's slower than a turtle, maybe like a snail.
A
It moves
sloth,
at a,
yeah, snail.
yeah, like a snail that it like on the slow side, like a really slow snail.
That's funny. And then the third piece we also already answered, like, has crypto gone too far down the points rabbit hole? And the answer I
No.
think you provided was no. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's like, hey, is crypto giving us too much free money right now? I think what people are really asking is, are points programs getting too hard and too annoying? Which maybe, but it's like the same with regulation. It's like, okay, first points program ever, everybody makes a ton of money. And then people are like, okay, we can't give away that much value. It's awful for the business. And you look at those early points programs, uh, really negative outcomes long term. So people push it in the other direction. Excuse me. And okay, now it's too strict, and it's like things oscillate until they revert to the mean and or revert to kind of the optimal configuration. And that's what we're working on right now. And some are going to be too lenient, some are going to be too strict, and eventually all of them will just be okay. This is perfect. We have enough data to back test on. We have this risk-free rate as a reference point, along with the valuation of our system. We know what yields these firms are expecting to deposit in size, which right now is about 12 to 18%. And if we can deliver that roughly over the extended period, then we're good. And that's like, we just don't have enough data yet to determine that. And the yield market fluctuates. So when you have an illiquid asset, like a point, and the crypto market is fluctuating, like if you in February shoved all in on scroll marks, for example, like, oh, I'm going to farm the hell out of these, it's going to be awesome. If you couldn't realize those points and they weren't liquid, obviously now when the market is way less amenable to L2s and not as excited about this or that, and there's less liquidity, obviously you're going to have to revise the value of those points down. And that's obviously very frustrating for people, but it's freaking finance, and those points will be worth more one day, hopefully. It's just everything is cyclical, and there are a lot of people that are emotionally attached to these cycles. And when things are up, it's like, everything in my life is going great, I'm so happy. And when everything is down, it's like, wow, my life is miserable. For some reason, how come whenever the coins are down, my relationship starts failing? Well, maybe it's causation, not correlation. But yeah, it's like people will be grumpy no matter what, and the people that are short when the markets go up, they're going to be just as pissed. So it's like, no matter what, someone is losing, and that's the nature of finance. Someone has to lose, otherwise, what's the point?
Yeah. That's the point. Okay, cool. I guess I've unlocked why my general disposition is relatively positive because I operate only on very long-term horizons.
Yeah,
I don't
be
know.
a
I'm like
stablecoin farmer, and you'll be the most regular person in the entire world.
Absolutely. And there is this one piece I did want to like call out with regards to utility. Actually, I feel like Dogecoin has the most utility for me, or had the most utility for me, in the sense that, fun fact, I just moved out of this place, but the pizza shop across from my apartment would sell slices for Dogecoin at 25% off.
That's awesome. I'll
Why?
tell you, any token that like got grandfathered in, like in 2020, to all these payments platforms, and kind of got knighted by the CTFC as like, oh, okay, this is definitely not a security. Like if you remember when PayPal launched their crypto product in late 2020, and Robinhood launched their crypto product, everybody was launching crypto products. It was the same set of like 10, 15 coins, like ETH Classic, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, stuff like that, Litecoin. That was because all of those tokens were considered at the time and still to be non-securities. And so we haven't really gotten much regulatory clarity on anything since, and everybody has been kind of too scared to really mess with anything since. So it's like we have these, and that's why everybody is confused when Bitcoin Cash or ETH Classic like goes up or is crazy. It's because in a lot of people's risk tolerances, those are the only crypto tokens or crypto coins that they can purchase or hold, and those are the only ones available by the institutions that these teams can engage with, or these hedge funds or whatever can engage with. So Dogecoin, very high utility. Great coin. Bitcoin, very high utility, but it's still pathetic in comparison to the almighty US dollar.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely was very interesting because they didn't accept anything other than Dogecoin.
He was probably a bag holder. Or if you're in New York, then New York had like infinite Dogecoin millionaire guys just pop up. New York is like the center of crypto. It's kind of crazy. I went there for the first time in June, and it was like the most insane thing ever. It's like there was crypto everywhere, and in LA
Yeah.
there's like none. It's like all entertainment industry.
Mm.
So it's like, there are like three guys in DeFi that are scattered around LA County, and it just is what it is.
Yeah. No, it's true. Crypto things are happening all the time. That's why I moved here. But yeah, I guess we have just a few minutes left. So I wanted to leave this time to kind of wrap up and give you a platform to talk about whatever you want, whether that be Codex, a last piece about DeFi incentives that I wasn't able to touch on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'll say is, if you've messed around with Lore so far, we did like this big experimental launch on Scroll, and kind of the focus was, hey, we're gonna get big and exciting, we're gonna get marks, and then we're gonna achieve escape velocity. But I think marks are a little toned down right now, so what we've done is we've unfortunately canceled the IFO because there wasn't enough demand side in this market, which means emissions have dropped quite a bit, and the way we're incentivizing things have evolved quite a bit, which centers around kind of Lore USD. If you've been on Nuri recently, Lore USD is a really high yielding stable coin there, and the Lore token, and kind of making them interoperate. I have no idea, but really kind of making them the center of attention. And on November 25th, we're also expiring all of the options we issued during the IFO. So there will kind of be a new exciting start, and there will probably also be a line of credit from Codex USD, which is kind of the core Codex stablecoin on Lore. So long story short, there is kind of some really cool, exciting stuff happening on Scroll. And if you try the Codex Alpha, you will, within the next couple of weeks, be able to just type in, I want the best yield. And if the best yield is on Lore, which oftentimes it is, we'll be able to route you from any network to Lore, perform all necessary swaps, even onboard you from your bank account, such that you can enjoy the Lore USD yield from anywhere as easily as you would, eat a sandwich. It's like seconds. Yeah,
That's actually
look forward to
amazing.
that.
From the bank account, woof. I feel like I haven't really heard that as much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
bank account or credit card. It's like how it will happen right now, because these APIs aren't super composable. Is it's like, I want the best yield, and let's say you have USDC on Base, which is very common right now. It's the easiest way to onboard to crypto at the moment. You have USDC on Base. The best yield is over here on Scroll, and there's a reason for that. The places that are harder to onboard will generally have higher yields. So that's like the alpha. So you're on Base, yields aren't that great. You're like, oh, what the heck? What we'll do is, or let's say you don't even have USDC there yet. I forgot we're doing the bank account example. We will pull up an aggregator of on-ramps for you that are available in your jurisdiction. I think there's 100 some countries supported right now. So we'll pull up an aggregator of those things. We'll give you an opportunity to onboard, which if you've KYC'd with a provider, will be easy. If you haven't, might take a few minutes, because all these KYC processes, depending on the size you're onboarding at, et cetera, you'll know. You've done it before, probably. But from there, money getting into your account will trigger an event. We will then take those funds, and we'll interact with Odos to make any necessary swaps. We'll interact with Li-Fi or Stargate to bridge you over to Scroll, and then we will deposit on your behalf. And all of that will happen without you even needing, if you don't want to execute a transaction. So when it's like omni-chain, what we would do is, okay, you onboard, we bundle that up, we send off that payload to whatever cross-chain messaging service, we bridge the assets, and we deposit using that payload. And our middleware infrastructure, like our wallet infrastructure, you can delegate all of that to an AI agent. So once you're on board, it's like you don't even need to maintain the position or confirm anything or execute anything. It's literally like, oh, I'm going to take this demand, which is just execute a cron job, easy peasy. And I'm going to be like, okay, is this transaction complete? Yes. Okay, do the next one. Is this complete? Yes. Okay, do the next one. Great, we're done. So there are a lot of ways to kind of skin the cat. That's kind of a sad thing to say. I like cats. A lot of ways to accomplish the same thing with this kind of solving mechanism. And you can think of it just like, Google Maps or like any kind of graph algorithm driven software where it's like, I'm at point A, I want to get to point B. What's the most efficient way to get there? And that's basically what Cod3x does.
Wow, super cool. I have a dog, so you're allowed to say skin the cat on here.
Well, I have a cat. And
Oh,
she's
you have a cat.
precious. Yes.
Okay. But accomplish different things is it's a good middle ground. But yeah, thank you so much for joining, Justin. I feel like I learned a lot during this session. Definitely times where I don't know. I feel like everything is yield financial nihilism. New,
Yeah.
I guess, catchphrases that I'm gonna put in my pocket for later. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the market is very simple if you kind of sit down and let it speak to you, so to speak. It's like all of us want to take our values and take what we want and apply it to the market. But really, like if you sit down and listen to customers and listen to their anxieties, their stressors, what they want out of this software, I mean, generally it's just, I want to make as much free money as possible. And that's valid. That's a literally multi-trillion-dollar industry, giving people as much free money as humanly possible. And I think what you just need to remember is in finance, like, it's a zero-sum game. So it's like that money comes from somewhere, that money's going to somewhere, and the utility that finance provides is the ability to just fine tune your risk reward. The person willing to take on a huge risk is generally offsetting some risk for someone else. So the person willing to jump in and farm an airdrop for some indeterminate amount of yield is de-risking the VC who just invested, at $1 billion valuation. And they're just trying to keep the ship afloat because they're managing big size and trying to keep risks down. And this person is trying to pump the risks up to outperform. And if everything goes according to plan, then there's kind of like a happy outcome for everybody.
Yeah. So, I guess takeaway is let's all pray to the cyclical gods that we'll have a happy outcome soon.
Yeah,
but it's not
happy
going
outcome.
Yeah. But if you're operating on short-term horizons, then you might have problems with your relationship because that's causation. Okay, cool. Well, again, thank you so much for joining, Justin. It's always a pleasure chatting with you.
Of course.
Very excited for Cod3x Alpha.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Thanks for the platform.